Well, good morning. We're back up on the mountain today. It's a bright one. Got a little bit of fog on the mountain. Sun's up. Let's get to work. Got all our tools in the mini truck. The foundation blocks that we poured yesterday look like they're dry. So it's time for a little bit of woodwork. We don't know. Here's our power setup. We have our air compressor for the nail gun and our generator. I think our first step is going to be to build this front wall and get it nice and level. All right, we're nice and level on that. We have this temporary supported. We need to work on this leg right here. So it looks like we need a leg about 13.5 inches long. All right, so the plan here would be to have our joists running out that way, even with the end of this board, which would be right about there. Let's make sure that's a nice square corner. Square enough. And then we're going to shoot this leg on right over here. See if I can do this without knocking the camera over. Now we're only going to shoot a couple nails in this right now in case we have to take it apart. Then we'll come back and shoot all the other nails in later. Why wouldn't there be? Always something. Perfect. All right, so we have this corner kind of clamped together. Over here, we're pretty close to level. And all this is just temporarily attached. It's pretty good. Good enough. It's a lot of work doing this by yourself. You got to use a lot of clamps and a little bit of strategic balancing. This is our first 8-foot bay here. And I'm going to sister up these joists along this section because we're going to have 8-foot decking boards. And I don't want it to stop in the middle of a board. So we're going to cover the entire one joist with those decking boards and the other joist with these. We'll make a seam right down the middle, but we'll cover it with something. So we're ready for a couple more legs. We've got to measure this one here. And also we're going to double up the one back there. So let's get both those measurements. Looks like the first one is 13.5. And the second one is 17.75. You guys try to remember that for me. I have to walk over to the truck to cut those. 13.5, 17.75. All right, the first one's 13.5. Does anybody remember what the second one was? 17.75. Okay, thank you. First one's pretty easy. We just kind of put it next to the old one and shoot it right in there. Every time you use these nails, you got to kind of look away when it goes off because it shoots little pieces of plastic out at you. Those aren't any fun. Now this outside leg, we have to make sure we're level. Looks pretty good. And we're going to do this the same way. We're going to space it back a little bit. Unfortunately, I don't think I brought my pencil with me. So we're going to space this back 1.5 inches, just like we did on the other one, because we're going to have to sister this up also. All right, you guys know the process now. We're going to put a board out from there, out to here, try to balance it, hope it all works out. Except we didn't level it. You got to put the level on it. Not too bad, but it's got to go up a little bit. All right, it's coming together pretty good. Don't worry about this front edge. We're going to level it later. Nothing's really attached to the ground, so we can slide that thing out or move it any place we want. At least that's what we hope. Next step, let's go ahead and get another 2x10 sistered to the outside of this one. And that'll help support our next 2x8 going across the front. So like any plan, it's not always exactly like you think it's going to be. When I lay this framing out, I wasn't planning on sistering up these 2x6 by 10s, but I think it is the right thing to do, and I didn't pick up enough at the store. So I have one more 2x10, but we have to continue this line to this corner, use that 2x10 to get out there somewhere, and then it's all 2x8s across the back edge, which means I don't have one more 2x10 to sister up this joist over here. So we're going to do the right thing. And I'm just going to screw a block in where this sister joist would go so that we can continue building. And then later we'll take this block off and put a 2x10 in. We're going to have to go to the store anyway and get enough 2x10s for all the other joists. So one more is not going to matter. I want to put this thing far enough out so we can get the screws out later. One would probably be enough, so let's put two in there. Perfect. Let's continue our front ledger board. We're also going to screw this ledger board into that block. We're going to have to take this out later, so I don't want to use a nail in that. So we're going to put that there so we don't forget. All right, our last section looks pretty level. You need to cut a couple more legs. So for this side, it looks like we're going to go to 17 3/4 again. And on this end, looks like we're 21 inches. 17 3/4 and 21. You guys remember that. I'm going to need you in a minute. Look at that, a mind like a steel trap. I didn't even need you guys to remember those two numbers. I hope they're right. Just got to add some more nails to our gun here. Locked and loaded. This thing just gets best guessed in here, it doesn't really matter. Clamp out of the way. Now you got to be careful when you're using this nail gun. The air hose, it gets tangled on everything. Right now we have it going over that board, under this board, We have to get it over here somewhere. I'm sure we can figure it out. Let's recheck, make sure we're still level. Looks pretty good. Now you may be wondering why I'm using 2x4s for these legs. We're actually going to come back a little bit later and add 2x6s supporting the ledger boards and the joists. So this is just kind of temporary. Now we do want to, I almost messed up there. We want to put this ledger board, or we want to put the joist inside the end of the ledger board. So we're going to put this thing like this and then nail it on, set back just a little bit. How straight could it be? All right, the next step is to add another joist going out this way. It's a 2x6 by 10. We'll support that corner. And then we're going to work on straightening this front edge, I think. We don't know. We'll probably come up with something else we need to do instead. All right, you guys know the drill. Kind of balance the thing on the thing. Try to make it level. You know, all the things. Got our little ledger block up here. I'm sure that won't fall off. Best guess it for level. Now we totally just screwed this up. We'll redo it. Let's shoot this corner together real quick. All right, I think that's it for the hard part. Everything else should just be assembling, and well, we do have more concrete work, so that's going to be a pain in the butt. But let's take a look at our work so far. All right, our first corner is on grade right here. It goes 10 feet out, and we actually have to extend that out another 6 feet. Yeah, I know, that's not going to be fun. And then it goes over 8 feet. We have our sistered up joists going out another 10 feet. Yeah, we have to extend those out also 6 more feet. Then we have our next bay here with what should be a set of sister joists, but we put a little block in here as a filler until we go back to the lumber store. And then all the way to the corner. This is the last one we just put in. So these 2 bays, we're just going to cap the ends at the 10 foot. Because we can't go out any further, there's trees in the way. Let me show you that. So here's the end of our 10-foot deck. And there's a tree right there. So we might have, oh, I don't know, 4 inches of clearance. Perfect. Worst case, we can come back in the future and just cut this tree. It'll fall down the hill, we hope. Now we messed up doing all of our joist supports here on the end. The next step is actually to put a 2x8 across these ends, which means these joist supports have to come off. Kind of bad planning, but we'll work around it. We also need to get the joist supports far enough in so they're not in the way, because we'd still have to dig some holes here, put some concrete in to support the final leg that's going to go there. We have to do it here, here, there, and the end. So that's 4 more holes that we need to dig in this rocky, root-infested forest. Sounds like a good day. So we're going to do the right thing and just add another support back here somewhere. We're going to recheck for level to make sure we're kind of level. It doesn't really matter. You want to make sure that it's clear of anything. If anything, it should be a little higher than it needs to be. But we're going to re-level it later when we do our legs anyway. But the better-ish we can get it now, the better-ish it'll be. Now we can remove our other support. And we're going to leave it mostly together because we're just going to move it to the next joist. Now this end of the deck is all cleared up, so we can drop a plumb bob down here to dig our concrete hole. But I think we're going to put our 2x8s along the back edge first and make sure the whole deck is perfectly square before we start putting concrete. We don't want to redo concrete. All right, let's fix all of our other joist supports. Make sure we're levelish. Sure, perfect. The screw is in the wrong spot. Here's a huge surprise. And we can take off the old support. All right, just like that, we have all of our supports moved. Now we can start adding our rim joists along the back edge. Remember that second one, we were supposed to sister up that joist. I don't have a sister on there, so we're going to go ahead and screw that piece together so we can take it apart and nail it later. All right, we have our joist temporarily sistered up with a little bitty block here. And I have a ledger board set underneath it so we can put our 2x8 right on top. That should make it a lot easier working by yourself. Let's see how this goes. So the idea is to support that on that little block that we made. And then bolt this together. However, it's too short. So something's not quite square. But we'll sort that out later. Let's just get a screw in here or a nail or a something. We'll just do one until we're sure it's okay. Now we have that corner attached about right. This corner is a little lacking, so we're gonna move this board that way. I'm sure that's what needs to happen anyway. All right, let's see if we can do this. I think I'll just go ahead and screw it together and then we'll square it up after. Perfect. All right, this next board can just get screwed or nailed right in as long as we clear that tree okay. Let's see if it works. All right, we're supported on a little block. Looks like we're clearing the tree by about 2 inches, so that's pretty good. All right, we're slowly coming together. Now, my original paint plan was not to put a 2x10 across here. Because that's going to extend out there 16 feet, so we need to add 6 more feet to it. But I think we'll go ahead and close it off with a 2x10. Man, there's flies out here for some reason. And then we'll pour foundations at that 10-foot level and get all of this squared up really nice. And then we'll just add an extension for that 16 feet. That sounds like another plan, maybe. So there's our closed-in box in all its glory. It actually looks bigger than I expected up close. We need to straighten out this front section. It looks like that third board over needs to come this way a little bit. And we can start laying out some concrete pads for the back edge. All right, we're going to go ahead and run a string down the middle of this front ledger board all the way to the other end to make sure we're straight. I've straightened it mostly, but it's still a little bit off. I'll show you. So on this end, our string is right in the middle of the board. At our first intersection, the string is still pretty close to the middle of the board, but it could go out just a touch. So we're gonna use our size 13 here and give it a little adjustment. Uh-oh, too far. Oh, that looks pretty good. Go to our next intersection. This could go out a little bit also, but not much. Uh-oh, too far. No, about perfect. And this end, the string is in the middle of the board. I know, that's getting a little precise for my work, but I think it'll look good. Next thing we need to do is pick up all of our tools, clean up our mess, and then start digging holes for concrete. Yay! The main reason I like putting all my tools away before I start working on the concrete is because after, I'll be too tired to put them away. So we'll get it done now. So putting in these foundations is not rocket science. All you have to do is tie a string here on the top, about 6 inches in from the edge because the pad is about 12 inches wide. And we hang our Plumb Bob 2000 here on the bottom. And that's where we need to dig. We have a tree right now. Stop swinging, Plumb Bob. All right. Scrape all the leaves away where we think we want to dig. And with any luck, there won't be any roots. So much for the no roots. Sometimes it's better just to take the pick and cut the roots and then come back and use the shovel maybe. All we're looking is for about 1.5 foot deep hole with a nice square top on it. And once we get down to the rock, it doesn't really matter about frost line or anything like that. Looks like we're already up against a rock layer. So that's good. All right, we have our hole dug down about 1.5 feet. We made a nice square level top for it so that our paver fits. And our string is pretty well centered right over the paver. What could possibly go wrong with that? Next step, we got to go carry some concrete and water. So I'm using the Sackcrete 60-pound bags because I'm not strong enough to carry the 80s. And since we don't have running water, we got to bring our water up in buckets. The good thing about bringing the water in 5-gallon buckets, I only have 2 buckets, so we can only do about 4 pads a day. That's more than enough for my old body. Get our Plumb Bob 2000 out of the way there. Get our capstone out. I'm going to pour a little bit of water in the bottom. We don't know why. Just seems to work better that way. Give that a good stir. And I also mix a lot of this red dirt clay back into it. I don't know why, but it doesn't seem to hurt anything. And get the top nice and levelish. Oh, that's looking nice. Put our paver stone back on top. And we'll throw a 2-way level on it. See what's going on there. Looks like we gotta stomp that down. Stomp that down. Perfect. Looks pretty level. We'll just backfill around the edge. Mix a little more concrete to seed it better, and that's one foundation done. Now you know it's good when you get gooey concrete oozing out all the way around the paver. We know that's not going to go anywhere. All right, now we need to do 3 more of those going down this line. But I'm not going to bore you guys with that. I want you to get outside, do something fun, come back and tell me about it.